Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Triple Play. Don't forget to
likes, subscribe, share, support.
That's right.
Those 4 things.
Yep. And you can support for as little as $3. And just a little plug is we're going into holidays. Don't forget we got merch. Check out hats, shirts. You got something you want to get for a family member. Good stuff to splurge on. I think
we still got mugs. Coffee.
We still got mugs. We got signed balls. We got all sorts of good stuff. So check it out. Lots of good stuff out there.
We getting rid of those footballs yet?
Not yet. I'm waiting to get a few more of the Rams players through here, and we'll get a few more signatures. I think Timmerman's going to come this way, but we'll be getting rid of some footballs too. Absolutely. And hopefully we'll get a few more ball players through here. We'll get some more different signed balls too and put those out there. But keep an eye out on the merch. Also, don't forget to support those that support us, like Andy McCallum and Resource One at the 636-458-1798. And then you got CS Design, the guys who did our intro and outro, and our website, 573-436-3717 for any of your web or internet type stuff that you might need. And then we got Jeff Earhart Agency with State Farm at 314-821-JEFF or 5333. Your choice on that one, but 314-821-JEFF is what I think of. And lastly, we're excited about our newest partnership with Brookes Bible College. Those guys are awesome. You want to get a little bit deeper in God's Word. You want to study, become either proficient in God's Word or become a counselor, or maybe you're a lay person, just want to go a little bit deeper and want to take some classes to know a little more. They're awesome. They're cheap. We don't say they're cheap just because like you're buying secondhand. You're actually getting a top end education, but you're not going to come out of college with a bunch of debt. Their goal is to allow pastors to come out and be able to pastor smaller churches and other ministries that often, if you have $100,000 in student loan debt, you cannot do if you're going to a liberal arts college to get your biblical education. So
Brookes Bible College.
Brookes Bible College. Consider them. That said,
who we got today?
Today we got a good buddy of mine. So, and you know what? I've probably mentioned him on the show before just because I know we've talked about Game 6 of the World Series. Mm-hmm. And this guy was with me at Game 6 of the World Series. We were there. We celebrated. We got to watch Freese hit the magic home run and got to see Berkman hit his. I mean, it was just a great game. But all that said, me and Lee have known each other a long time. We had lunch just a little while ago, and I was thinking before lunch, we haven't talked in a little while, and I was thinking about what are some of the things that brought us together over the years, and there's a few things that really came out, which is we're both entrepreneurs. We both have been screwed over by our partners. True. Come on. We both have had to go through the school of hard knocks and some of that. And we both love what we did when we started out, and we hate the government has overregulated us. They've zapped the joy out of our normal, like what we thought would be our career jobs. But we both have great families. We've had kids really about the same time. And so he's got one in college. I just got one that started college. He's got another going to be in college. I got one right behind him. We're kind of like zing zang, one boom. So we both have married wives who were educators. So a lot of common things that have brought us together, and we both love the Lord Jesus Christ. So. And I think we both love Lake of the Ozarks too. So Absolutely. It is one of our favorite getaways. And you have an amazing mother-in-law. I will say that too. A little plug into Joyce because she's pretty cool. I like Joyce a lot. She makes me smile. So all that said, we got Lee Ori today. Entrepreneur, pharmacist, dad extraordinaire, husband extraordinaire, and we are glad to have you.
Pharmacist?
Yes, sir.
That's right.
So what's the difference between compound pharmacy and regular pharmacy? I get that asked sometimes when I mention that you do compound pharmacy. So,
well, the way I describe it to people in general is the old apothecary style of pharmacy, the old mortar and pestle. If you ever watched the movie It's a Wonderful Life, the George actually went back and, he saved the child from the pharmacist that made a mistake. That was actually a compound. So, compounding is the origin of pharmacy. And it wasn't until 1950s, the invention, so to speak, of the pharmaceutical companies that compounding was the mainstay of pharmacy. And so now how I describe it is if you have something, you need something dye-free, lactose-free, sugar-free, alcohol-free. A good way to describe it too is with your pets. there's not as much research in in vet medicine as there is human medicine. So the difference in a 150-pound man and a 20-pound dog is substantial. So we oftentimes compound the medication down. We'll actually change the dose appropriately for the pet, as well as flavoring's always an issue, especially with cats. So we'll do a lot of alternative dosage forms. So
That's interesting.
So we actually I joke for all of the pharmacists that are listening that may not be in compounding, we actually use our degree. So forgive me for saying that.
No, that's awesome. No, but you're actually making them and playing with them and creating them. They're not just replicated from a box that you're opening up and popping them out that have been mass produced.
Sounds like science pharmaceuticals as opposed to like retail pharmaceuticals.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of similarities, believe it or not, in compounding pharmacy and cooking. Mm-hmm. So when I interview somebody, I'm happy if they don't have experience. But one of my questions is can you cook? Mm-hmm. Can you follow a recipe? Because a lot of compounding is learning techniques and following them. And like I said, we have to understand the human body probably a little bit more so, than a Walgreens pharmacist. And, so we are all oftentimes looking at a problem and how can you affect it? And, what would affect that problem and what drug or what mechanism would do that. And, as such, we have to, when I took a mammalian physiology in college, I never realized I was going to use it as much as I do.
Oh, wow.
But it's cool. I love compounding pharmacy. As you said, the overregulation a minute ago. I love the art of compounding pharmacy. I love taking care of patients. I love finding alternatives for them and treating them or their loved ones. And there's so many times where we're the last resort. They've been to countless doctors, countless pharmacies, countless whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they finally get their way to us and we usually can help them.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
That really.
I know Josh was telling me that you recently lost some weight. Did you use this compounding knowledge in any way, shape, or form, or was that more a dietary thing?
I did not. Well, I used the compounding knowledge in the fact that I shut my pie hole and got on a treadmill. If that's what you want to call, at the end of the day, weight loss is a simple math. It's really what it is. And, everybody knows it. It's just whether or not they practice it, and I certainly knew it. I just didn't follow it.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure if maybe there's some compounding that you could do to help digestion and clear some stuff out. And maybe that was part of your methodology. And
no, I did it without any, as a pharmacist, the first question out of most people's mouth to me is, what did you take? And I took no medications. I did take supplements. I did no surgery, had no help. Really, honestly, I just started by walking. Yeah. I just got out and walked, just got out and moved.
Yeah.
I've always heard walking, if you can walk just a little bit further, it's always better than running a shorter amount. I don't know.
Well, it depends. I think it also depends on your body shape and who you are, but there's certainly some math behind it. Just like when you're at the gym, you actually burn fat when you're not moving. When you're doing a full out cardio, you're working muscles, okay, and leaning them, but you're not necessarily burning fat. Fat is usually burned by going a slow, steady pace up some kind of a hill. If you're on like a treadmill, they say to set it like a 10 or 12 at a low, a decent walk, but not like really fast, okay? Or going like a Stairmaster and do it at a grind, let it just kind of work, and you don't want to go super fast, and that's how you burn body fat. So
what I do mostly now is monitor my heart rate. They say that your peak fat burning zone is 180 minus your age. So I try to keep so for me, I'm almost 50.
Yeah.
So about 130.
Okay.
So I try to keep my heart rate in that 130 zone. So regardless of what I'm doing, you know, if I'm on the exercise bike or the elliptical or the treadmill or walking, it's hard for me to get it up that high now. I can't do that walking.
Yeah.
I could back in the 120 pounds ago.
Some burpees every 10 steps or something.
Yeah, or throw on a ruck, you know, throw on a weighted vest. It's amazing. Like people make fun of me, like, you know, you did all that work to lose weight and then you throw a vest back on and you put it back right back on. Like I've got a 60-pound vest. I don't always wear 60, but I can go up to 60.
I actually wanted to talk about where you grew up and all that, but we kind of jumped into the weight loss thing. We'll rewind a little bit here, but before we do that, how much did you lose? Because I've never asked you that. I was curious. How much did you wind up dropping total now?
Around 120. My peak was Memorial Day of this year. I started at about 45% body fat, and I got down to 10.5. And I'd lost 128 at that point, and I settled in about 120.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work and dedication for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was, you know, I was athletic when I was younger and was pretty fit and opening my business and pre-kids and maintained it for a little while. And then I just put everything in front of me, you know, my family, my work, everything else. And I came last, and the pounds added on through the years and you know, you get the you know, this bottom of this deep, dark hole that you don't quite know how to climb out of. So.
Well, I want to talk about that, but let's get into a little bit. I guess let's rewind just a minute and let's see, where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from? How'd you get to pharmacy school? Because I know we were just talking about your Auburn passion, and then let's get into what inspired you. What, you know, maybe what led to, as you said, the work and all that, and then what led you to finally changing that gear to a healthier lifestyle and taking the challenge to switch it. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
Absolutely. Well, I'm originally from Alabama, from North Alabama. I went to college at Auburn, was good at math and science my whole life, thought I wanted to go to med school. And so I started at Auburn, and I started in chemical engineering. That was at that point, and well, it still is a good degree to go to med school. And was a junior, set to graduate in 4 years, and honestly just hated it, just absolutely hated it. And I was like, if I don't get into med school, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I kind of had this moment where, you know, I'm second guessing my future and what I was doing. It was like most college kids do. And, you know, I'll back up. I'll rewind myself. My dad had passed when I was 19. My dad was kicked out of school at 16, wound up getting his GED, and my mom was functionally illiterate. So I didn't have and again, my dad died when I was 19. So at this point,
were you in college yet, or were you were going to college and then he died and then you had to go to college, or were you already at college when you?
I was. I had a 2-year scholarship to junior college,
okay.
and so I was in junior college at that point. But yes, I was actively in college. Mm-hmm. So, you know, at that point, I'm a junior. I didn't have a whole lot of people. So since I'm 19, I've been on my own pretty much. You know, every decision's been mine, good and bad and otherwise. I've had to live with a lot of mistakes. But, you know, I'm sitting here as a junior and really just didn't want to do it, and didn't want to do chemical engineering. And so thankfully, I actually even had a co-op job. You know, I was successful enough, so to speak, in chemical engineering. I was doing great. You know, I had a co-op job and I decided I didn't want to do it. And I got to looking around, and Auburn thankfully had a pharmacy school, and the prereqs were basically the same. And I remember I went to the co-op job and said, hey, you know, I really like this job and really could use the job, but I don't think I'm going to do chemical engineering. I think I'm going to, you know, bounce out and go to pharmacy school. And they said, well, you know, you're doing a great job. You can stay. So
do you remember what prompted that? It was just you had to find something else because of chemical engineering.
100%. So traditionally you want to go to med school, you're going to get, chemistry degree, biology degree, biomedical science, some ology degree. Well, they're worthless, unless you, so if I don't wind up going into med school, then at that point I'm getting a master's degree probably in something else, and at that point, pharmacy was a very sought after profession. Pharmacists at that point were in high demand. And the salary, ironically, hasn't really changed from 20 years ago. They were paying pharmacists so much then that they're pretty comparable. Wow. So I started, again, I just looked around and was trying to weigh my options. And at that point, pharmacy school had a 5-year bachelor's program, and Auburn did offer a PharmD program, which is a doctorate degree, which is a 6-year program, but I could get out in 5, which, I'm sitting here, I can do 5 and get, actually have a degree of something that I can use versus, a chemistry degree. And just fell in love with it. Just fell in love with pharmacy, fell in love with it, to wound up staying and get my doctorate degree. Wow. and got my PharmD and never even applied to med school, or it became an afterthought after I fell in love with pharmacy. So I graduated from Auburn and moved to St. Louis. My wife is from St. Louis, and met in Auburn. And
so did you have to come back to St. Louis, or was that really just because she wanted to come back, or did you just think there was an opportunity with just as much here? What kind of prompted that? Because you guys could have stayed down there too, right?
Well, I fell in love with the Cardinals.
There you go.
No, that is true.
Might be true, yeah.
Yeah. So no, while Alabama's a beautiful, awesome state, there's just not a lot to offer there.
Yeah.
And which we can certainly go down that rabbit hole. College football is life, and but you're pretty much 365 revolved around football. And I wanted other stuff. I wanted to do more than just argue about Alabama and Auburn. So I was never going to stay in Alabama. I was gonna move, and I still had my mom at that point, but I didn't have a lot of family. My dad had passed. It was time.
No brothers, no sisters.
I'm an only child.
Oh.
Yeah, and my parents were married 17 years before they had me. I was, as my aunt calls me, a miracle baby. Wow. So as for those of you that know me, I always get that explains it. You're an only child. That's that explains your personality. Yeah. So for those of you that are going to listen to this, yeah, that's you. So no, coming to St. Louis was always an option, but it was one that I chose. That we chose.
Had you gotten to know her dad? Because I knew he kind of mentored you a little bit when you first came up, didn't he? I mean, if I remember you talking to me. So
yeah, and sadly, Ron passed about 5 years after we got married. So he had cancer and passed. He was actually officially diagnosed on our honeymoon. So. But yeah, he was a tremendous human, and obviously as is Joyce, as you mentioned before,
for sure.
So, but yeah, that was you look at St. Louis, and you've got a fantastic city with at that point 3 sports teams. We obviously have all kinds of culture and restaurants and what have you, that I just didn't really have that option in Alabama. There's no professional sports. If you really have no choice but to be a Braves fan, which, love the Braves, grew up with them. So, but you're traveling to Atlanta to go to a game, and, it just wasn't what I wanted. I looked at several places and pre-dating and ultimately coming to St. Louis, but there was, I thought about Florida or Nashville or even Atlanta, although I hate Atlanta. Sorry to those of you that are listening. The traffic's just insane.
Yeah.
So
Nashville's that way now too. I mean, back then Nashville wasn't bad, but now Nashville's terrible. Anytime I go down there, it's like, man, I got to get there between the rush hours, like it is.
You definitely plan out your route. You have to go through Nashville for sure. My wife went to Alabama, so
Okay. Well, I won't hold that against her.
So I understand what you mean by there's nothing wrong with Alabama. It's just a place I can picture like having the thought like, look around and be like, no, I don't want this for the next 50 years, kind of a thought.
Yeah. I've got, growing up, there was 4 of us that are best friends, and 2 went to Alabama and 2 went to Auburn. And, I'm the only one that left the state. So the other 3 are still in town, and, we've been friends since 4th grade, and, they have families and lives, and, they're extremely successful men and have great families and great lives, and they're so I don't want to take anything away from the state. It just I just wanted to do more than I wanted to be able to do more, and see more, and we're almost to baseball season. Any random Tuesday night I can head downtown and go to a game. Mm-hmm. You don't get that option in Alabama. I can catch a blues game or go to the theater, go to a concert. Like, you're just not doing that, and I go down to the Hill and enjoy some good Italian food and you top it off with Ted Drew's,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't do that in Alabama.
Mm. Well, there's got to be, I mean, I'm sure you would maybe agree that there's got to be something where you wanted to leave that life that you grew up with, I'm sure some pains and stuff, and plant your flag somewhere else, right? So it didn't have to do with St. Louis. It just was maybe not Alabama.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like I said, I had made the decision I was leaving the state regardless. I looked at, like I said, Florida. Mm-hmm. I had spent a spring break in Jacksonville and thought it was a nice city. And, I didn't know. I just know I didn't want to stay there.
And how old were you at this time? 20?
Yeah, in the low 20s.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by the time I graduated, I set myself back a little bit, changing majors and obviously I did co-op in there and made money. I had to pay my own way for school.
Yeah. Well, I'm sort of thinking you had to make all these decisions. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I graduated in 2000. So I was 26 ultimately when I graduated, but there was, all of those decisions along the way that I had to consider, and money was always a consideration with me. It was, people still to the day make fun of me because I'm so frugal, like I squeak, but I had to be,
You say, if somebody says you're frugal, just say I'm simple. I'm just a simple man.
Yeah. There you go. Because that's true. I am. Well, they'd probably argue. They'd probably, there's nothing simple about you, buddy. Probably, but
no, but you know what? That's a good thing because that means you retain wealth, right? I mean, Scott can probably attest to many ball players that walked through, made good checks, and then had nothing to show very long after their careers. So, all right,
what you can know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading an article the other day about all the football players.
Oh yeah.
All the money that they made that they don't have anymore. So
that's very common there.
Yeah.
Very, very common.
Especially football, yeah.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah, the Rams used to invite me down quite a bit to talk to the players about that because it was such an issue. So talking, so you come up here. How'd you become an entrepreneur? Because was that just something you always wanted to do, or did Ron kind of inspire you because he was an entrepreneur, or did you just
all in your lap?
Probably all of the above. When I was growing up, just having, like I said, both my parents were, my dad got his GED. I was the first one to graduate high school, first one to go to college, first one to graduate, much less get a doctorate degree. So, my expectations were honestly probably pretty low. At that point, I wanted a good job with a good living that would provide me a better life than I had. Did I have aspirations of being wealthy? Yeah, but I really didn't even know what that was at that point. To me, making $100,000 a year was wealthy. That was an infinite money at that point. So, the long story short is I was the first member of our first student at Auburn to do a rotation with industry, and I did a rotation with Eli Lilly, which is probably part of the reason why I wound up in St. Louis. Was they offered me a position and they had one in St. Louis, and so I started out with Eli Lilly, and was working here in pharmaceutical sales. I was in the Creve Coeur area, so I had, St. John's and Baptist and St. Luke's and Barnes or Barnes West, I really should say. So,
so many hospitals, St. Mary's, I could just keep naming.
There. Yeah. And at that point there was still St. Joe's and I'm gonna say Crestwood, whatever that area is. And so anyway, one day I'm calling on a good friend of mine who's a nurse practitioner, and she was like, Lee, you're a pharmacist, I really need a compounding pharmacy, and I got this need and whatever. Do you know of any? Can you help me find one or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, let me look at that. And I had done a little three-day program when I was in school, and PCCA, which is Professional Compounding Centers of America, is very active at Auburn. One of the founders was from Auburn, and so I had a little bit of a compounding background. I went to Houston and done their program as a student, and they sponsor you, and you come out and do the class, and so I really liked compounding, and so I started looking around, and there, lo and behold, there was nothing. There was no compounding pharmacies in West County at that point. There was one in the city and then one kind of out in St. Peter's, but there was nothing in that whole West County corridor. So I just got the wild idea to do one. Hey, I like this. I've done it before, and I had some support from Ron, and obviously he had the business acumen, and so I wound up quitting my job and went to work for Schnucks. Worked 7 days a week for a year and a half, and saved every dime, and paid a whole bunch of house payments ahead. And I kept paying my house payments, and they'd be like, well, you want to apply this to your principal? And I'm like, well, in a normal world I would, but no, I need to apply to my payments. And, I was probably paid up a year plus in advance, and had the money to open the store, and a little bit of a nest egg, so to speak. And just made the jump, and, worked Monday to Friday, and my hours originally were 10 to 6, and I'd go out in the mornings and market from 8 to 10, go and open the store. And at that point, there was me and one part-time technician that worked with me. Shout out to you, Sue, if you happen to listen. We used to shut the pharmacy down for lunch and have family lunch. We'd actually eat together, and it was a joyous time, much different than what it is now. But so we just kept growing. I started going out and marketing to the thank goodness for Eli Lilly. I had 130 doctors that I called on, all that knew me, that respected me, that I had supported, and they all knew I was a pharmacist, and most of the time they were asking me questions outside of the drugs that I was selling. So I had developed, earned a lot of respect with the doctors, and, I launched, I went out, before the pharmacy opened, and re-engaged them, and it was probably a quicker launch than it would have been had I not done that, So again, that all went into my decision as far as opening the store, and so that's kind of how I wound up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you do that, and you've been successful. You've sold a couple of times over, and you got to have a bad partner in there. So, and
yeah, the end of the day, I had made some, I'm going to say some moves. I wound up, there was you both probably remember, there was a company here in St. Louis called Advanced Lipodissolve, and Advanced Lipodissolve changed their name to FIG, F-I-G, which was short for figure. And they had a fat dissolving injection that basically they did. And the same girl that I told you that was a nurse practitioner that got me into compounding, so to speak, wound up being their medical director. So she called on me again and said, hey, Lee, these guys are, got this business, and, they're kind of, they don't understand the regs and the how pharmacy comes into play, and they're being told some stuff that they shouldn't, they probably shouldn't do, and so I just went in. She goes, would you just help me, because she's, at the end of the day, she's a clinician, and she's got a license, and she was she had to protect. And so she brought me in, and, I had no expectation of getting a job there, so to speak, or a client, and just educated them on the law. So this is what you need. This is the law. Like, it's black and white. Here's what it is. This is what you got to do. Well, they were so impressed with my presentation that they said, well, we want to work with you. So, I grew from nothing, I don't say nothing, but grew that business from nothing to, probably a multi-million-dollar account as they expanded from multiple sites in St. Louis to, I think they wound up with 15 across the country. The problem is they basically shut down overnight. I don't know, I'm certainly not going to get into their business practices, but they shut down overnight and screwed a lot of people out of a lot of money, including me. And they abruptly shut down. And at the end of the day, the bad news is whether or not I was with them or I wasn't, which I wasn't, I kind of got pulled into the mess. And I got pulled in, and one of the partners was from Fiji. And so he left the country, we'll call it. And the other one sadly passed away. And, so at the end of the day, I'm kind of the last man standing. And so I had a lot of regulatory, this is really just my opinion. There was heads had to roll. It was a black eye on the state. There was a lot of, tens of thousands of Missourians were screwed out of money. And, so they had, well, and obviously other states too, but I was domiciled here. And so they kind of came after, regulatory came after me and came after me hard. And I lost a lot of money in the process, and the money that was the receivables that were owed. And then furthermore, I got pulled into the bankruptcy. And as a vendor, I never had been in that situation before, so I had to do that. So it ultimately, what happened is I merged with another pharmacy. I felt on a necessity to I'm gonna say save the business.
Yeah. And
move locations, went to Westport, and it just wound up just being a horrible, I call it a marriage. A partnership's a marriage. It's just a business marriage. And it just wasn't fruitful. I'll just leave it there. And it just didn't work out. And ultimately, our principles weren't aligned, our business ethics, and I kind of wound up in that same situation that my partner wasn't a pharmacist. He was a businessman. So the same situation that I had battled when I went to Advanced Lipodissolve, and I told them, this is law. I wound up battling myself, wound up battling a guy that wanted to do things that may not have been totally legal in order to make money. And so I wound up leaving there in October of 2011, and had a 2-year non-compete, and started consulting nationally, and to the exact words that were used on me when I left the business was, I was reminded I had a 2-year non-compete, and basically if you're going to get a payout, you're not going to compete with me, and if you do, I will not pay you, and I will use your money to sue you. And so I was threatened greatly, and at that point I'm still, I'm low 30s, not a lot of business acumen. And, a guy was 20 plus years my senior. And, I was scared. And, and I had a decent buyout, and, wound up consulting. And, in that process, I consulted with, probably 10 pharmacies across the country. Made a lot of connections, a lot of tremendous people, and wound up buying a pharmacy in Nashville, 2014, and sold it in 19, and then I bought into Arizona in 2017, and I still own that pharmacy today. And then we opened another pharmacy, which is a work comp pharmacy. So I have what we call a hybrid pharmacy, which is a compounding retail pharmacy. We do take insurance. Insurance doesn't pay for compounding anymore, but we do take for regular prescription drugs. We take insurance. We're probably 80% cash compounding, another 20% retail, of which if we can sell it for cash and not have to deal with insurance, we'd rather do that. Then the work comp pharmacy actually it's workman's comp. Or workers' comp that is no insurance contracts at all, and it's pretty much, we're licensed as a independent retail open door pharmacy, but really it's closed. We pretty much ship everything. We have a handful of patients that come in a week that are just close to the store, but other than that, that one's a pretty good gig because I'm not dealing with insurance and it's pretty much closed door.
Okay.
So we take very good care of the patients, but we don't interact with them as much as I would like.
Is compounding, is that more of a maybe not regional thing? Like I'm thinking like maybe the Southwest would potentially be more into compounding pharmaceuticals maybe than the Northeast, just because of the background from the people that are coming in that area, or is that not even thought about? It's across the board.
It's across the board. Yeah, it is. Times have changed dramatically. When I first started, the conversation always was, just raise the water level. Get out and raise the water level. Whether or not you're raising it, you're raising it, or your competition's raising it, or whoever. You're all just trying to educate people and let them know that you're there and raise the water level in the city. Now there's again, everything as Josh alluded to at the beginning, what we do is extremely regulated. And, from a pharmacy perspective, I'm regulated by the State Board of Pharmacy, by a state controlled substance agency, and then I have an FDA and a DEA from a federal perspective. On top of that, when you go into compounding, you've got other regulations that you have to abide by, which are USP regulations, which are basically, let's just call them safety. They're safety. Kind of akin to an OSHA. And then lastly, which is the worst part of all of it, is the PBMs. The PBMs. Express Scripts is a PBM. They have their own pharmacies. So not only do they control the lives of the patients, but they have their own pharmacies. So they compete with us. CVS is CVS Caremark. So as a PBM, you've got Caremark who owns their own pharmacies. And so it's in their best interest to put us out of business, to audit us out of business, not want to pay us, to make it difficult, to not pay us enough, so they can take those patients. And, just a lot of inappropriate, unscrupulous business practices, go on. And so, we could, not only am I fighting your state and federal agencies, so to speak, or, having to abide by their regulations, and, from there, we've got the battle from a business perspective with the PBMs. So having said all of that, you get a lot of, so the only way that you can make money in pharmacy is to do something other than retail pharmacy. So retail, your traditional retail pharmacy, where you're filling a cholesterol prescription or a high blood pressure and you're billing an insurance, pays very little. Right. And, so those pharmacies, the independent ones specifically, like if you ever go into a Walgreens, you always notice the pharmacy's in the back of the store. Well, it's in the back of the store for a reason. You got to go through everything else. They're making their money on selling you all the other junk. So, pharmacies has changed, and one of the ways to make money in pharmacy is compounding. And, again, it's predominantly cash business. It's high profit margin, so to speak. It's low dollar stuff, but, we'll run... we try to operate 80-90% profit margins, and that's where we try to be. Those margins go down as the price goes up. Sure. But, so a lot of these pharmacies are, trying to make money, and they're opening, either opening compounding pharmacies, or adding them to their scope of practice. So the competition, like you mentioned the Southwest, the competition in the Phoenix metro Scottsdale area, so to speak, went through the roof. I bet there's been, I don't know, 10 since from 2017 to now, there's probably been, I'd say 10 or 15 pharmacies open up at least, if not more. So, but that's a national thing, again, as farm, the transition in pharmacy as a practice is get to cash, whether or not it's retail prescriptions. If you look at Mark Cuban, he just started help me out here.
I don't know. He does so many different things. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a pharmacy that's cost plus. It's a costpluspharmacy.com, I think.
Okay.
And his whole model is I'm cost plus 15% or whatever it is. And so there, there's a lot of pharmacies that are going that way. They're just going to a cost plus model, or again, it's a cash model to try to get away from the payers. From the PBM. So, man, we went all over the board there.
I like that.
That's okay. I learned a lot. I'm sure you did too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your weight loss. You get all through all these businesses, and in the past couple of years, you said that you kind of got to a dark spot and you didn't feel like you could get out. I'm assuming that's with the weight. So what all happens? So
yeah. So with success came putting myself second, and third and fourth. And when our second child was born, Natalie, is when we were in the heat of the lipodissolve. So I'm father of two at that point, working 80 hours a week. I don't even know, trying to build out and expand and do all this stuff, and then all of a sudden it all crashes, and you're left trying to pick up the pieces, which is almost more work than actually doing it itself. And and then had several transitions in there, and good and bad, and just wound up taking what I felt was taking a lot of my time. And so, through that period, I learned to medicate myself with either alcohol or food, poor food choices or alcohol, and to help with get the dopamine hit and help with the stress and what have you. And so through years, and in there I stopped working out. I went from 200, 220 pounds, probably all 30, 34, 36 inch waist, all the way up to 320 pounds ultimately. And I don't know, probably 46 plus waist. And so, but it was just such a slow decline, that my daughter was born in 2006. So, you're talking, 15 years of just making, cumulative poor decisions, and, ultimately put on a lot of weight. And, I'm looking at, 320 pounds and trying to figure out, I've often described it that I'm sitting at the bottom of Mount Everest. I'm sitting at the bottom of this huge mountain, and that the peak of Everest is, where I want to be. And it's like, how do you do it? How do you make that climb? And it was just to me, such a big climb that it was hard. I just could never overcome it. And, I based all my success on the scale. 100% of my success was based on, what that scale said the next day. And so what would happen is I'd go on and go hog wild. I'd go hardcore, jump into the deep end. I'd drop 30 pounds. I'm blessed that I can lose weight fast, but I can put it back on just as fast. And, I'd get on the scale, jokingly on a Monday, and it wouldn't move, and Tuesday it wouldn't move, and then by Thursday I've had a struggle of my week, And I'm like, well, screw it. I haven't lost weight yet this week anyway. So what's a beer tonight? What's a cheeseburger? What's a whatever? A pizza. And Friday would come, and now I'd be into the weekend, and I'd be like, well, I worked my butt off this week, and I was bad yesterday.
I took Monday and Tuesday off, but I'm good.
Yeah, so I'd go into the weekend, and I'd wind up, just going at it, and 3 months later of doing that same thing, I'd put all 30 pounds back on, and I'm right back where I started, and I never could get out of that vicious cycle. And so that's where I wound up, and then in 2 years ago, and in June of 22, I had my best friend Jason. He was a follower, subscriber of Phorm, and he had gotten into Phorm and had started taking their products, and Phorm has an app, and the app is got a nutritionist that's your coach and works with you, and Jason had lost at that point, I'm going to say 50 pounds, somewhere in there. And
so it was noticeable. For those listening to, if you don't know Phorm, they're a supplement company. So they do supplements, they do proteins, bars, they do all sorts of stuff out of here.
Coaching.
Yep, coaching now. So, but good products. So just wanted to put that in there, just so people who are listening who may not have a Phorm by them understand what we're talking about. So he started taking these supplements, and he started following their app. Go ahead. I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Oh, no. It's quite all right. So for the St. Louis people, the same ownership of Supplement Superstores is the ownership of Phorm, or some derivative thereof. And so Phorm is a brand of supplements. I'm gonna call them supplements. Is health food and supplements that is sold at Supplement Superstores. So Phorm has a yearly event called Summer Smash, and Jason wouldn't take no for an answer. You're going to Summer Smash with me. I live in Des Peres. Corporate headquarters for Phorm's in Fenton. They're 10 minutes from my house. And so, I basically had every excuse in the book not to go, and he just wouldn't take no for an answer, and he took me. And, I just had all these preconceived notions if from the health food industry or the supplement industry, workout community. In the past, it was back in the day, it was all meatheads, and, they're paying,
no fear.
They're paying the bodybuilders, and they, coming out of sports, they had all the caffeine based pills, the speed pills, I remember the pitcher that passed out, back in the day.
Those things killed people all the time. Yeah.
So the
ephedra.
Yeah.
You're talking about good old ephedra.
Yeah, that's what it was.
If only we got some.
I'm sure it's not expired.
It sure it is.
Don't take it, please. You might have a hard time.
We love you, Josh. Stay with us.
Ephedra.
Yeah, they used to have it in like all the sports drinks. Like,
dude,
high school kids would take them.
Oh yeah.
And now it's swapped to the opposite. So ephedra restricts your veins. Okay, so people felt they got a pump because it restricted your blood flow. So your veins would shrivel up, which is also the problem when you get out in these hot conditions. Mm-hmm. They would pass out and die from it. That's what
it was a speed though, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it was combined with
stimulant.
Yeah, it was a stimulant, but the ultimate thing of that is that it constricted your veins.
So it was double.
So now. Well, basically, they went the opposite way, which is what now you see in a lot of product, which is
nitrogen.
Nitrogen oxide is most of them, and that basically opens the veins, and so it's the opposite, but it does actually more work and allows things to flow much better. So actually, a much healthier way than ephedra.
Let me ask you a question: do I become a compound pharmacist when I put sodium on a cut? Is that compounding right then? Like it's turning this sodium, the peroxide into oxygen?
You're more of a nurse.
Okay. I can take that. I wanted to know the answer.
Nurses are great people.
I didn't know if just in that moment I became a compound
They make doctors look good.
All right. I'm not a compound pharmacist.
Yeah. Now, if you would have combined some triple antibiotic ointment at the same time, then you would have been compounding.
Okay.
So, Lee, you want to hear something funny?
That's good. That's what I wanted to
Yeah,
know.
just mix two things.
Yeah.
Somebody the other day on Facebook asked about what's the latest treatment of a certain illness that we won't mention. And a doctor responded with the chart. And this gal comes on and goes, "No, I'm a nurse. And I can tell you that," and starts to correct one of the top doctors in all of St. Louis. So all I had to do was sit there and laugh. I'm like, this gal obviously has no idea of this guy's pedigree. Because this guy is a top doctor.
Well, was he wrong?
Was he? Oh, no. No. He's part of 9,000 physicians, and this was their recommended way of handling it through therapeutics and stuff. And she was all about, a certain thing,
Sure.
a certain.
And probably had an agenda of some sort.
Well, she knew it all because she had a study from KU.
Well, there's your first mistake.
Well, I just loved it. I'm like, that's what I love is they have this one study, and I'm going, well, we got like the whole world. Okay, like
Yeah.
I've done the study. I've seen all of India, seen all of Brazil. I don't need any more studies to know what works and what doesn't work because I've seen it. So, but it was really funny. Anyways, when you said nurses make doctors look good, I just immediately flashed in my head because I was like, in the past 48 hours that happened, I was just dying because it was a friend of mine.
If you spend enough time in the doctor's office, ER room, you'll notice that the nurses, they run the show.
Oh,
They
100%.
run the show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
but the you reference a study from KU. I have to say that's like saying Alabama to me. So nothing good comes out of those universities.
Flat ground.
Yeah,
Flat ground, very flat. Yep.
yeah.
So he takes you to the Smash.
Yeah, so I go to Summer Smash, and again, I had no idea. I didn't even know that First Phorm and Supplement Superstore were related. I had heard of Supplement Superstore. My son goes there, but I really didn't know about First Phorm, and
Right by my office here.
learned a little bit.
Literally.
We go to that one.
I know.
The one right here on Manchester. So we go, and my preconceived notion is a bunch of meatheads, a bunch of egotistical meatheads, vain, blah blah blah. And I went, and it honestly I couldn't have been more wrong. While there were some very fit people there, everybody there just really cared about you. They really cared about you as a human and you and your journey and wanted to help.
That's cool.
Excuse me. So I wound up meeting this young lady there that was an employee and had moved from California. And she starts telling me about Andy Frisella and starts telling me about his podcast. And I didn't know who Andy was. I had no idea. I didn't know who First Phorm was nor Andy. And she tells me that she listened to this specific podcast and said, I got to move. I got to move to St. Louis. I got to work First Phorm. And she references the number. And I'm like, holy cow, this girl moved across the country for this guy, and this she references the podcast, and she was just such a sweetie. And so I walk away from Summer Smash. I can't say I was a changed person. I just can tell you that it was a community that was unlike one that I had been a part of, and it was polar opposite of what I expected. That's what I can tell you. So,
and you saw results with your friend, and that's the other thing. You have seen that it works. I always tell people when you see something that works, that starts to always pique your interest. So, and then you're finding about this community. So that's great.
Yeah. So I started listening. I walk away, and it's probably a month later, and it just keep resonated with me. And obviously my buddy Jason's talking to me, and I'm like, well, if this guy is that powerful that this girl's going to move across the country to come work for him, then I need to listen to him. So I started listening, and before long, I've listened to podcast after podcast, and I resonated with what he was saying, and it made sense. And he keeps referencing the earlier podcasts, which, again, this is where this girl decided that she was going to move, and so I went back and, for those of you that don't know, Andy Frisella developed 75 Hard. So, he references the 75 Hard podcast.
What's 75 Hard? Just tell them what that is. So that way,
Well, people would confuse 75 Hard with a workout. 75 Hard is a mental toughness strategy, make your life better process. And while it does involve working out, it's much more. And so the without going into great detail on 75 Hard, it's, there's several.
You can listen to the podcast and learn all the details, but in essence, it's both a workout and a changing of your mind.
Yeah. So, and it's your thought process. It's a 75-day program, which is why it's 75 Hard, and it is hard. I am man enough to tell you that I attempted 75 Hard, and I failed out on like day 55. I fell asleep at 1 o'clock in the morning reading my book. But one of the things that you have to do is read 10 pages of a nonfiction self-improvement book, and do it every day. And I had done all of my stuff, and except for that, and fell asleep. And my life is still such that I haven't tried it again, and I will, but I haven't got there. But anyway, so I go back and I start listening to all these episodes, and the one thing that resonated with me was Andy. I can take these off. He has a thing called Win the Day. So, basically the thing is I got too tied up on the future. I got too tied up on, I got to lose 120 pounds. How do I get there? How do I get to the top of the mountain? And I never focused on one step at a time. And I put all of my emphasis on the scale. So, he has a whole podcast about winning the day. And, so while there's more that resonated with me, that's the key takeaway was I just started practicing winning the day. What he says is, you win the day, you win 5 days out of a 7, you win a week, you win 3 weeks out of a month, you win a month. You win 10 months out of a year, or 8 months or whatever, you win the year, right? So, I just started focusing on stacking wins. David Goggins would say, putting cookies in your cookie jar.
Yep. Great way. I like David a lot too.
That's the thing, like stacking. I'm stacking.
Yeah. Taking souls.
Yeah.
Hey, David. So I started practicing win the day. And, I stopped putting emphasis. I finally got to the point where Andy made enough sense. I listened to him long enough and resonated that I trusted in the process. And up to that point, I never had enough respect for anybody that I trusted the process. I jokingly say I thought I was smarter than everybody else. And so I just trusted the process, and the process was simple. Just win the day. That it is literally that simple. So I set out winning the day, and I stopped weighing every day. I went to where I would weigh at best every 2 weeks, and miraculously every 2 weeks I would lose weight because I would have time to push through the plateaus, and I wouldn't focus on the weight. I would push through the plateaus, and I continued to lose weight. Now, some weeks were better than others, but there was always some improvement on that scale. And I joined the app. And, thankfully, just by pure luck, the coach for the app is Jeremy Mullins, and Jeremy is referred to in First Phorm as the GOAT. Like literally the guy's an absolute legend in First Phorm. He's had more he's had like 30 something transformation winners. So many he's lost count. Wow. And he's just not only a fantastic human, but he's a fantastic coach, and he's a veteran. He's still active, and just a fantastic person. And so the long story short there is I'm still figuring it out though. I'm figuring it out. I'm watching all the Jeremy stuff. I'm consuming all of his content, but he doesn't even know who I am. Doesn't even have a clue. Like, I'm on this app and I'm walking, I'm walking, I'm doing my thing, and I'm dieting, and I started doing fasting. I did intermittent fasting, and then I went to keto intermittent fasting.
That's intense.
And it works well. It's a great diet, and it worked well for me. And I was walking anywhere, I had to build up to it, but I'd walk probably a minimum of 6 miles a day, upwards of 12. And and walking is a fantastic way to burn energy. To speak about what you said a minute ago or earlier, is walking burns calories, but it doesn't increase your hunger. So it's not running. You can burn calories, you can get out. But at the same time, while you're, again, calories in, calories out, it's all a math equation. You're burning your calories, but you're not making yourself hungry to eat more. So I started, I lost 100 pounds doing nothing but walking and fasting and keto intermittent fasting. So that's all I did. You want the magic formula? Shut your pie hole and get on a treadmill. I mean, that is literally, it's that simple. So finally I don't know, I've lost, let's just say 70 pounds. And I reach out to Jeremy for the very first time on the app, and I message him because I had some questions and introduce myself, and he responds back with, "There's always one." And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? He goes, "There's always one of you that's in the background doing your thing, losing weight. I don't even know you exist." and this challenge, I didn't think we had one, but here you are.
Popped up.
Here you are.
Yes.
And so now I work with Jeremy all the time, and now I count my macros. Of which you can do within the app. So I converted at about 100 pound weight loss. I converted from fasting to counting my macros.
Okay.
And you'd be amazed at the weight you can lose by eating 300 grams of protein a day. Believe it or not. Yeah, I thought it was crazy, but I do it. So
how many steaks is that?
Well, depending on the steak, is 6. Yeah. Well, I take a lot of protein. I drink a lot of protein powders and what have you. So.
If you were like me, and I would think, when I lost my 100 pounds roughly, I was nothing but scrawny because I had some muscle underneath there, but you're just so much fat, right? I didn't count my fat back then. I didn't know I was 45% or whatever it was. But I know that if you look back at those pictures, I'm just skinny, and I've had to increase my protein, not just to take care of hunger, but also to build muscle, because you want to replace that. One of the ways you don't go back is to replace some of the fat with muscle, so that way when as your appetite and you're not doing a full on diet, you're doing more of a lifestyle type thing. Because you can do fasting, you can do certain things, but there's certain things you just life is going to throw curveballs, and you just can't do them all the time, and so you got to be prepared for those. And I think one of the things that's been important to me, at least in my weight loss journey, has been finding balance, but finding balance while I put on muscle, so that way I don't necessarily put the weight back on when I do have a bad day, or when I do go, no, we're getting ready to have Thanksgiving in a few days. I'm gonna have pie. I'm gonna eat turkey. I'm not gonna hold back. So, but I also know that some things that I know is that I have a little slack, but I also know that I'm gonna put a little extra work in, do a little extra walking a day before I do when I started losing the weight, I started doing turkey trots on Thanksgiving. So me and my daughter now have a new tradition that we've done now about 12 years or so now together. This Thanksgiving will be no different. The two of us go do a turkey trot, and I'll go walk with my younger boys for their portion of it, and we'll go back and eat. But you build in those things. I think one of the other things that really, and again, I can just speak what things that have changed in my life, but now versus finding things that are more sedentary, I look for things for the family to do together that are more active as well. Like, hey, let's go outside and play soccer, or hey, guys, it's I think, was it last Thanksgiving or last Christmas? The last couple of years, either Thanksgiving or Christmas, has been great weather. So I packed up the family and we went on a hike. Let's go to Castlewood and do a walk together. We've had a great meal, enjoyed all the food. Now let's go on a little bit of a walk, and
it's part of the lifestyle thing.
Yeah,
making your habits healthier habits and doing the little things that
Yeah, in the past, I would have been probably sitting down and playing a video game or something a lot more sedentary. Do you find that, or is that? I mean, I'm just speaking some of the things that I have found to be successful. What have you found to be successful? Are those type of things that you're doing that you find yourself doing now?
Yeah, things like routine and.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one thing that you said that I wanted to say is counting like with you. Counting the macros, so to speak, is something that's sustainable.
Yeah.
It's something that you can learn and it's, whether or not you follow it to a T every day, or not, doing that is something that in life is sustainable. And so, I follow macros, pretty much every day. And to some extent, Jeremy probably argue I tend to not record them on the weekends. I don't know why. But
I bet you in your head, you're still like, I don't really, now that I've been doing this for so long, I don't necessarily jot everything I eat, but I know, hey, I ate out today. The next couple of days, this is going to be my diet for the next several days. I'm going to have to tighten up the belt,
And you make better choices though when you do eat out.
Yeah,
I've eaten out with you enough times that I see you make good choices. So
and you remember the bad ones probably too, when we used to go to ball games and I was fat and I ate all those burgers and hot dogs and had the big. Always had. In fact, I got 2 of those helmets over there. Those big old nacho helmets they used to give you. Uh-huh. Yeah, man, I could down one of those. You kidding me?
I didn't know. Well, I guess maybe were you big when I first had met you? I don't remember.
Big. I don't, I was probably, when you were 14, I first started meeting you, I was probably just starting to get big because that was when I was getting in the corporate world. Mm-hmm. And then when you had come back, I had probably at that point lost my weight because I was right when all that happened.
I never knew Big Josh. Never knew him.
Yeah. Well, Big Josh existed for
I didn't
6-7 years.
Yeah. No, I never. Yeah, I've known you since you've been at least on the way back down.
Yeah.
But to speak to that, I have an Apple Watch and I work on closing my rings every day. So the Apple Watch has three rings, a stand goal, which again it's just to get you up and moving, and then there's an exercise goal and ultimately a move goal, which is a calorie goal. Mm-hmm. So my goal is to close those rings every day, which really ultimately is close the calorie goal. If I burn X amount of calories every day, I know I'm going to win the day.
Right.
So my habit is closing my rings.
Well, you know that because you know what you're putting in your body.
And then you got to win your monthly award, right? And the weekly awards. You did 7 in a row. Come on.
Yeah.
I close my rings too. That's I may not count calories, but I definitely love to look at my little rings when they close every night. That's how I know I've done a good workout.
Well, we need to share data then. So,
you're welcome to anytime. I don't know how to do it. You show me how to do it. I will gladly share mine because I try to close them every day. And, occasionally a kid's got a school thing or whatever, and I just can't get to the gym that day. But
so that's the thing is I've got a great support system. We've actually not only do I have the First Phorm community, but we've formed a little group. We're all First Phorm. We're all inside of First Phorm. We're Jeremy Mullen's team, which is Team Alpha. We're all in that group, but we all have a little group that we do, and we have a text group that we talk and we share our data on our watches. And when we're having a bad day or so somebody doesn't want to work out, I can see that my buddy Jason's closed his rings. My buddy Jason finished his workout. They've done things in a day that show that they're out moving, they're out working, and if they're doing it, I got to do it. So Apple's got a nice little community system too. So we all share our data, we all text, we call them non-scale victories. We all text our status, our updates, our victories, or whatever. We support each other. So we've got a fantastic, I've got a fantastic support system that, not counting, friends and family that support me, and they all know the journey I'm in and are on, and they do the best. Like, when we went to lunch before we came here, we'll eat what fits in your diet, and you're cognizant of the fact that I'm trying to do these things. And Most people in my life are. No, I don't have anybody out there trying to sabotage me for sure. So you'd be surprised. It's funny. I always used to complain that everybody that would, hey Lee, let's go get a beer. When I'm Fat Lee, everybody wants to get a beer. Everybody wants to get a burger. But it really was more me than it was them. Now that I'm not Fat Lee, I got just as many people wanting to go have a healthy smoothie, and go have a salad that I wanted to have a beer. But I always used it as an excuse to be fat. Always made it somebody else's fault or problem than my own. So, so just, kind of just to recap, just to circle back real quick is, I just won the day. And I just, the people that are in the industry, and they can say that, you can say this about a lot of things, but, it's choose your hard. And the one thing that I really want to communicate to your listeners and to people that'll listen to me is choose your hard. Being fat is hard. Being skinny is hard. But I can tell you that the one thing I was obese, I was morbidly obese for, up to 15 years. So I have a pretty good perspective on what it's like to be fat and what it's like to have to compensate. And so I put myself last and I thought I was doing the right thing. And I thought I was doing good for my family and my business and my everything. And I just didn't have time. And now that I've climbed that mountain and I'm not to the top of it yet, but I'm working on it. But now that I'm on my way, what I've learned is when you are fat, you compensate. You have to compensate to get through your day. Everything takes longer. So anything from going to the bathroom to taking a shower to cutting your toenails. You ever tried to cut your toenails when you got a gut that you can't bend over? It's not fun. Putting on clothes, it's not fun. You're compensating for everything.
When you go shopping, I would imagine it takes longer to find what you need.
Yeah. And I mean, just, you're moving slower, so now I work out, every day and I close my rings and I'm making healthy decisions for myself. And it costs me no more of my day, no more. So what I traded for being fit, I traded all the compensation that I did when I was fat. I can put my clothes on like that. I can take a shower like that. I can cut my toenails. I can walk faster. I can do things like the things that you don't realize, and Josh, I'll turn to you as you might have experienced this, but the things that you would shy away from when you were fat, like you mentioned going and playing soccer with your kids or going on a hike or doing, it didn't even have to be that. It would be like, hey, I need these boxes moved. Well, I got something to do, and you'd go somewhere else, and it just, I've never been lazy. I was far from lazy, but I would shy away from things that I would sweat so bad that it was embarrassing, and again, I'm huffing and puffing, and meanwhile, the other person's carrying the boxes like they're nothing. So the end of the day is choose your hard. Choose your hard, and being fit versus morbidly obese it takes me no less time in a day than the other.
I'll tell you one of the things that I noticed too, you kind of mentioned it, but is you overcompensate in who you are too, because you want people to like you. You don't want them to see the weight in front of you. So you tend to be maybe a little bit of somebody who you aren't, or maybe you're just exaggerating who you are a little bit. And I think when you lose that, and not necessarily have to be in fit shape, but just like you are now, you probably realize people just like you for Lee. You don't have to be whatever. People like you for who you are, and you weren't always sure, but when you were heavier, now like at least that's how I felt. Like I remember when I was overweight, I felt like I'd have to exaggerate my personality sometimes because I was afraid people might not like me because of my weight a little bit, and so I would tend to just be that way. And now that I'm who I am, I'm just who I am. People like me, and you know, if they don't, they miss out.
Well, and the thing is you'll find that you like you a whole lot better.
That's true.
You know, I think there's some of that compensation that was really for yourself.
And your wife likes you better too. Don't lie. It's all good.
Everybody likes me better.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But yeah, no, and it's one of those things. I think I agree with you on the compensation, 100%. But I think in my case, a lot of it was for me, that I felt like I needed to be that because I was not this. You know, I was so...
Now, kind of what I meant, you just felt like you had to. It doesn't necessarily mean that you had to.
Right.
But you felt like you had to because you weren't sure how people felt about you. And it was really your own self-perception of your image.
Mm-hmm. And to recap a little bit more, you felt like the weight loss was I've heard you mention it twice, a mountain. Mm-hmm. It was a mountain. So you talk about how do you get people to get to the top of the mountain. You talked about it, taking that first step. And when you take that step, win that step that day, and then the next day, take that next step.
I love your theory of win the day. I just love that. I really like that. And that can be, you can put that in so many different ways. I was thinking, you talk about weight loss, but I'm thinking in business life, in your marriage, win the day. If you're going through a tough time in your marriage, win the day.
Yeah. Well, and Andy has, and there's a lot of versions of it, but, Andy has a power list. You make a power list every day of your top 5 critical tasks, 3 or 5, whatever it is. They say don't go way more than that because then they're not critical.
Right.
But, you have, and then, so you develop, and you mentioned a minute ago about, what kind of routines do I fall into? Well, one of the things that Andy talks about is, you have a power list. Well, if working out is at the beginning on your power list and you do it every day for a month, well, then it's not a critical, well, it is a critical task. It's now a habit and it can fall off your power list and you put something else on there. And it, and if you apply that, as you said, Josh, to all aspects of your life, it's powerful. And so, that's why, so my team, I told you we got this little text group that we went to Summer Smash this year. And we all showed up as very different people.
That's awesome.
I'll share with you the before and afters if you're interested. Yeah. But we all showed up different people, and so First Phorm was selling these hats, and as part of it, you got free embroidery, and my whole team did win the day. Because that's basically what changed it for us is win the day. And that's the thing is my message to people is if you really break it down, it's just stack your wins, just win the day. And it was harder for me at the beginning, I'm 320 pounds, I went out the first day and I have the data in my Apple Watch from the very first day. I walked 2 miles and it was like 22-minute miles, but I did it, so that was harder. That day was a hard day.
You also had 120 pounds more on you to make it harder. So you were working things. So you don't, again,
right.
In the grind.
So it was, and what I mean by harder is it was more of my day. Again, I'm already compensating and it was harder. So it's harder at the beginning and you don't realize how tremendous and how much effort and how dedicated you are to just take those first steps, because people don't understand. All I could ever see was the mountain I had to climb and the 120 pounds I had to lose, but just caring about yourself to take the first step. And because you'll never, you do things right, it's never going to be worse than where you are. So taking that first step at your absolute worst is hard, but it's worth it, and again, choose your heart. And if you could make it to where you start chipping away and stacking your wins and the weight starts coming off, suddenly the scales start to shift. And it doesn't, there was a point where it wasn't so hard for me anymore. And it became easier. And, and I hate to run. Like I am, you talk to me, I hate running. I hate it. And I'm not a runner, but you listen to, we talked about David Goggins. David hates running, but he goes out, and this guy runs 200-mile ultras. And, but his goal is he goes out and does the thing that he hates the worst first thing in the morning, and he gets it done. He knows he can do anything else in his day because he's won the day. He's stacked his wins, right? So I've made it my goal to run. And now I run 6 or 8 miles a day.
Woo!
And yeah, and I will proudly say I can run I'm not super fast, but I can run a 10-minute mile at that 130 beats a minute. Like I can actually run and hold my target heart rate at a run.
That's cool.
And so my goal is to get faster and what have you, but what's weird is I have people that actually talk to me who refer to me as a runner. They actually they've called me a runner, and I'm like, I'm not a runner. And they're like, Lee, you run 6 to 8 miles a day. You're a runner.
Yeah. I
don't care what you don't think you are, but you're a runner. And I'm like, so it's been a huge transition for me to actually think about that. But again, my first day was 2 22-minute miles walking, huffing my butt off, probably sweating like a beast. Mm-hmm. And and here I am, out the other side, and I can run 5 miles in that same time.
And you're saying, and people listening, the work that you've put in is hard. It's gotten easier, but initially it's hard. But that hard is what, maybe I'm hearing this wrong, but what I hear is that hard is not harder than your lifestyle being overweight.
100%.
Okay.
It's very well said. Yeah. It's a lateral move.
Yeah. So you keep saying, you've said pick your hard, but literally if you stay stagnant, that is your harder. So you're choosing harder, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're choosing, being rich is hard, being poor is hard.
Yeah.
Like Josh said, apply it to other aspects of your of your life. Stack your wins, and it's not hard to be financially free, or secure. It's not easy to do that, but it's also not easy to flip burgers and live paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. Both of them are hard. It's just, it's just a discipline to do one or the other. And that's the thing that, so once you get into, the irony there is there's the correlations between personal fitness and financial fitness are very similar. It's just a discipline. It's a discipline to do it.
Well, I think that's a great place to end today.
Yeah, that was great.
Is that good? Do you have anything else you wanted to say?
No.
Because I really thought that you've really laid out. Win the day, choose your hard, and it's discipline. Those are some of the key things that I'm listening to you, and they're all resonating with me. I'm gonna be reflecting on this conversation the rest of the day. I always do that, and I love it when I get to edit because then I get to listen to it a couple more times and think about this.
Win the day, don't quit. I think I'm talking about, we've been talking about your weight loss more recently in this conversation, but I'm thinking about your entire life. There's been some things that have knocked you down, but you've kept going. You've had mountains in your life, and you've taken the step, whether you've known it, like moving, going to college without your father, moving to be here with your wife, like starting a new company. You've always taken the first step. So maybe in your mind you hadn't taken the first step, but if I would have known you and known that was a thought, I would have almost guaranteed that eventually you would have taken the first step.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. I can see what you're saying, and I appreciate the analogy. Yeah, it's just that, had I had a you in my life at that point, would have said, hey, Lee, you've already taken the first step 20 times here,
What's holding you back?
Yeah, what's wrong with this one? And now that I know what I know, it makes sense. So, it just took me 15 years to learn what you just learned in an hour, or what you saw in an hour, but no, those are the key takeaways. We've the only shameless plug I'll put in there is, we've been working, we work at the pharmacy on the regular. I honestly probably wouldn't have been successful in the amount of time that it was because of I did have some help from we developed some creams that have helped with muscle soreness and aches and pains, and specifically like a tennis elbow or overuse injuries, from bicep curls or stuff like that. So we have pushed, have developed some products that support the athletes, specifically the old men, the older, experienced, as Jeremy puts it, the experienced people in the group, and your weekend warriors. So we have done that, and that's helped me push through.
Can you order those online?
In about a month. Yeah,
okay,
we actually developed an over-the-counter product that is set to launch in December.
When it does, let me know, and then we'll blast it out to people and remind them, and then I'll also tag it to this episode later on, so people go back and watch it, or watch it later on. We'll be able to
I'm
see
sure
that
we'll
product.
have old people listening that want some soothing, relieving creams. Yeah,
They're good.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you. Yeah, and I'll let you know when it officially it's in production right now, and it did so well. Really quick to we've mentioned mountains and being screwed and this and this. So my partner and I, Sarah in the pharmacy, we had an entire CBD line that was set to launch. It had just a fantastic line, had great marketing, and had put a bunch of money in it, website and blah, blah. Set to launch March of 2020.
That's unfortunate timing.
Yeah, it was terrible timing, terrible. So we lost the whole thing. The whole thing went down the tubes, but we oftentimes make lemonade out of lemons, right? Mm-hmm. And so the people that we did get the cream, we did a traditional tincture and we did creams, but a cream. And the people that actually used the cream still to the day, hey Lee, you got any more of that cream? They call it the cream, not the CBD cream, the cream. So we actually took that as our foundation. We took the CBD out of it. But we took that product as the foundation, and then we took this other product, I'm going to call it a product, that I developed for myself to help me push through, and now we're actually putting them together. And
compounding, if you will.
Yeah. So well, each one of them were compounded independently. Yeah. So this cream had a different use than the second one, and later in my life, and through working out, I found the need that I needed this, because my tennis elbow was so bad I couldn't even grip a bar, and so it was either lay off and recover or find a way to get through it.
Right.
And so I developed this other product and which worked great. So now we've actually got the combined compound coming out later next month. I'm excited for it. So, but again,
I am too, because I have tennis elbow, so that's great.
Yeah, but it was kind of forged out of failure.
Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah,
as they say.
Yeah, but at least I get some use out of that, that failed opportunity.
That's cool.
So it's God has a path. You don't know what it is at that time. You think oh my gosh, I lost all this whole thing. I lost all this money, and but yet there's still a path ahead of you that you don't know. And so had we not created that and it fell down, I might not have had it to use today. So
I'm looking forward to checking it out. So awesome. You let us know when it's ready. We'll pop it on here. We might even have to bring you back to talk about it sometime. So we love
free samples.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it. No, but no, we definitely gonna have to get you back here. We could talk. I feel like we just scratched the surface of some of this too right now.
Just so you know, if you're listening, Lee, would you agree you're a little bit nervous to come on? First time podcasting?
First time.
He's done an amazing job. I would say those fears are unwarranted.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I am from the South. You ask me what time it is, I'm going to tell you how to build the clock. So I think we had some of that today. I think we built a few clocks.
No, I thought it was great. And so we'll put that on there. We'll also have Andy's podcast. We'll link it to ours. So anybody wants to check out what he checked out and be inspired, do that. If you are interested in the intermittent fasting, we have had a podcast on that with a great host, and we'll put her stuff on there just to make sure you guys have that on this podcast as well. So you're looking for any of that kind of stuff, look down in the links. You'll see it along with the great places to grab merch and that kind of stuff and support us. And we appreciate you guys listening in. Appreciate you, Lee, being here today. And congratulations on everything from the journey to the success to watching your young boy become a man and your young girl becoming a lady, and she's an amazing. I love watching her on Facebook a lot. So it really is cool to see how God has used you all through the years, and I've been blessed to have you in my life. So thank you. And with that, guys, we'll catch you next episode.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
You're safe.